I believe you lived in Birmingham, Luke.
Yes,
So did I.
Yeah, I loved living in Birmingham. I was there for 3 years.
Okay, so can I'm not going to ask you, but you can do the Brummie accent? Do you pick that up when you were there?
Well, I think I can do all accents to a certain extent, but certain extent goes from being terrible to being reasonably acceptable.
Brummie, what is it? It's the accent of Birmingham as well as the name for the people of Birmingham. Famous Brummies include those Peaky Blinders.
Today, this is my wedding day.
Yeah, and you said there'd be no bloody uniforms.
Nevertheless, John, despite the bad blood, I'll have none of it on my carpet.
Comedian and staunch Republican John Oliver.
All we said was that Britain is still mourning the shocking loss, right, of a 96-year-old woman from natural causes. Literally not a joke. Scientifically, that's not a joke. That's just a fact with a kind of dickish inflection. That's all it is.
ELO frontman Jeff Lynne.
Because you still haven't lost your accent, have you? You're still a Brummie.
Oh, well, I'm still a Brummie. But, you know, you don't really lose your accent ever, I don't think. I don't know anybody who ever... I've no reason to lose it because in California they think I'm posh.
Do they really?
Yeah. They think, oh, that's a nice accent. Where'd you come from? And I tell them, and they still don't know how people talk in Birmingham, so they think it's posh.
And William Shakespeare. What? Yes, he was a middle-class lad from Stratford-upon-Avon, just 35 miles southwest of Birmingham, and he probably spoke a precursor to the Brummie accent, and some rhymes in Shakespeare only work with a Brummie accent. More about that later, so stay tuned. But first, a bit of history. The name Birmingham comes from Old English and means the Beomingas, the Beomingas being a local tribe. In Shakespeare's time, in the 16th century, Birmingham had a population of about 1,000 people. Why is the Brummie accent so distinct? Why is it so musical? Well, it's a mix of these things. Put in some West Saxon, the language of the reason 1,000 years ago. Lots of Welsh labourers moved into the city during the Industrial Revolution, so throw in some Welsh.
Mae'r blodau yn creu y canolbwynt. Dwi eisiau trio cael yr blas ne allan o'r blodau.
There were a large number of Irish labourers.
Remember, this is the real world.
Oh, you're right there, Ted.
Anyway, any idea why July the 19th should be so important? Would that be the day the Ice Age ended?
In addition, since the Second World War, there has been immigration from the Indian subcontinent, the Caribbean and many other places. Today, Birmingham is the second largest city in Britain, with a population of around 1.2 million people. Birmingham is in a region called the West Midlands. The western part of the region is called the Black Country, which shares a similar, though distinct, accent to that of Birmingham. So today on Let Them Talk TV, we're going to learn all about Brummie with myself and accent coach Luke Nicholson. We'll be dissecting the accent of politician Jess Phillips, as well as other speakers from Birmingham. And just to remind you that this is part 3 in our series of accents of Britain. So do check out the others on this playlist.
Who have suggested that Birmingham needs more resources and asked them if maybe the minister could explain to me why so many of them have been cut when they feel this way about areas with high migration, because it sticks slightly in the craw of a person who grew up in Birmingham.
Well, in the Birmingham accent, one of the most salient vowel sounds is that vowel sound in price. We talked about it earlier in the Bristolian accent, so that I sounds that you might get, and in the clip you'll hear high migration.
About areas with high migration.
And in a stereotypical Brummie accent, if we exaggerate it, it might be something like, high, I need to get back into Brummie now. 1, 2, 3, high migration, high by migration. You'll also notice the A vowel in migration. That vowel starts much lower than my A vowel. So when I say migration, A, it starts at a higher point compared to migration, A.
Migration.
Or two other instances of that A vowel you'll hear in the clip would be in maybe and explain. Maybe, explain.
If maybe the minister could explain to me. If maybe the minister could explain to me.
And she doesn't have an extremely strong Brummie accent, but you can hear a flavour of these, the exaggerated vowels I just did. The Brummie accent is one of my favourite accents in the whole of the UK. One thing I find very interesting about it is, to me, it has more of a minor feel if we're talking about major and minor scales. I know that this is a very Western view of looking at things, but from my personal standpoint, when I hear Brummie, it sounds like it's moving along a minor or a chromatic scale compared to other accents. It doesn't mean that it sounds sad or that it has any kind of negative connotations. It's simply the way it moves between notes.
The thing about Indian food is, right, it's very, very, very low in carbohydrate. Yeah. So that, combined with the various herbs and spices used in the cooking process, it all makes up for a very, very healthy diet, you see. Why?
Another typical thing that you'll hear in a Brummie accent is the vowel sound in kit and bit, for instance, will be higher compared to my accent. So rather than I vowel, it will sound more like an E vowel. So something like kit, bit, rather than kit, bit.
Well, you know, it's a bit of a bleak day. It's a bit of a bleak day.
Like you, I lived in Birmingham for a time, and I couldn't tell the difference between the accent of Birmingham and the cities sort of north and west of the Black Country. I still have I had a friend who tried to explain it to me, and he gave me the example of bus, which in Birmingham is bus, but in Wolverhampton be called buzz or something like that. That was the example again. But can you distinguish the two? Are there clear differences between Wolverhampton and Dudley and Birmingham?
Unfortunately, while I was there, I had no knowledge of phonetics. I hadn't even learned about this, which was a great shame. But I think the difference that you're describing now is this difference between the foot and strut that we talked about earlier when I talked about Newcastle in up and becoming, or put and put. So for some speakers in the Midlands, these will be one category. So foot and strut will have the same kind of vowel. And for other speakers, they'll be different. Because the Midlands is, of course, in the middle of Northern English and Southern English. And then so you'll get speakers who make that distinction and other speakers who don't. And perhaps that's one of the differences between Black Country English and Birmingham. But perhaps people can tell us in the comments.
Yeah, and as you said, it's in the middle of the country, so it has some aspects of a northern accent, some aspects of a southern accent, and it's unique in its own way.
I love the Black Country. I love Birmingham as well. When they asked me to do this, I said, I've got to do it, man. It's in Birmingham. I always feel like Brummies and people from the Black Country are very underrepresented, especially on the TV. Like, I live in London. I just miss it. I miss hearing the accent. Oh, it's great. Like, my favourite TV show was Game of Thrones, right? It always annoyed me how there was no Brummies. Isn't it weird? When the North fights the South, they act like they didn't have to go through the Midlands.
Something that I find very sad is that there's very little linguistic research done on accents like Birmingham or Bristol. And there's a huge amount of linguistic research that's been done on received pronunciation. So unfortunately, I've spent a lot of time looking online for Birmingham and Black Country English and West Country English, but there's very, very few, unfortunately. It's not something enough people are interested in, and therefore there's not enough research being done on it.
Accents is like, sort of fine wines. You taste a wine, you have a hint of strawberry and a hint of chocolate, and maybe British accents are the same. You get a hint of Welsh here and a hint of Irish. So possibly it's like that. But one thing you might find interesting for those lovers of the Brummie accent, as we both are, that Jonathan Meades, the architect, said that Shakespeare is best read in a Brummie accent. I don't even knew that. And I've got an example here. I want to apologise in advance for my poor Birmingham accent. I'm going to read it in my SSBE London accent first. This is a sonnet from Shakespeare. Though to itself it only live and die, but if that flower with base infection meet, the basest weed outbraves his dignity. Okay, so that it doesn't really scan in English, doesn't really rhyme. But now if you say in a Brummie accent, though to itself it only live and die, but if that flower with base infection meet, the basest weed outbraves his dignity. Excuse, once again, apologise. You do that better than me, Luke. So would a billion other people. But you see, die and dignity, it rhymes. Yeah. So was Shakespeare a Brummie?
The linguist David Crystal has created this project called Original Pronunciation, and you can look it up online, and it's a reconstruction of how Shakespeare would have sounded in his day and how texts perhaps would have been read by actors. And you'll notice that in Original Pronunciation, as it's rhotic, so all those R's are pronounced, and you were right that kind of that E vowel at the end of dignity was more of an sound.
Okay, so there are elements, maybe not a Brummie, but there would have been elements Shakespeare would have had. He was from the region. He was from Staffordshire, wasn't he? From Stratford upon Avon.
What were the two words that rhymed again? It was
die and dignity.
Yes, yeah. So yes, it suggests they would have rhymed in Original Pronunciation, and I guess take a look at the website and see if you can. I think some of the sonnets are recorded, and you can listen to them online.
Okay, so it's another reason for learning the Brummie accent if you're if you're studying English.
That's the Brummie accent, but if you head south, just about 140 kilometres, you reach the city of Bristol, and it's a completely different accent. To find out more, check out this video here, and if you're interested in the history of the English language, then do sign up to our newsletter, link in the description. That's all for now. See you soon. Bye.